Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on the penultimate episode for season 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs. I always get excited when it's the penultimate episode because usually with anime series and most television shows in general, it's not the finale that all the bangs go off in. It's usually that episode right before the finale where everything kicks into gear, and then your finale episode is usually to round things out and build towards the next season if you've got a series that has multiple seasons like this one. So I'm pretty excited because I'm not gonna lie, episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10 of this series have been really good. The last 4 episodes have just been amazing. Like, I loved the first 4 episodes of season 2. Episodes 5 and 6 were fine. They were great. But then from episode 7 on, it's been really, really good. So I've been very happy with Bungo Stray Dogs. I'm pretty excited to get into this episode. But before we do, I wanted to talk briefly about Edgar Allan Poe. I love Edgar Allan Poe, the writer, and I find his adaptation in this series in the last episode very curious. A lot of fun. The raccoon on his shoulder, just the style and design of him was very interesting, but his power is called the Black Cat in the morgue, and so I was very, very curious because I'm not familiar with that Poe story. I'm more of like the generic Poe stories like The Raven, with Telltale Heart, with The Cask of Amontillado, with The Mask of the Red Death. Like, I'm more familiar with those stories. So the Black Cat in the Rue Morgue is something I wasn't quite familiar with. So I went ahead and looked it up. And it's a reference to 2 short stories. The power is relating to 2 short stories written by Edgar Allan Poe, namely The Black Cat, which in hindsight, I had heard of The Black Cat, but I had not heard of The Murders in the Rue Morgue. The first story tells the story of a murderer who conceals his crimes, but eventually reveals himself after he's guilt-ridden. Poe had a very big thing about characters being guilty of crimes they committed and eventually confessing. I don't know what that says about Poe, but the Telltale Heart is very similar to The Black Cat. But then the second story talks about a protagonist, Augustus Dupin, who's considered the first fictional detective who inspired Sherlock Holmes, and Hercule Poirot, solving brutal murders of a mother and her daughter in their home located in the fictional street named the Rue Morgue. So I like that, whereas Rampo is a very Sherlock Holmes reference, and the author of Sherlock Holmes, and the author Rampo himself was inspired by Sherlock Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This character, Poe, in Bungo Stray Dogs is actually inspired by the reference to Sherlock. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic, but I thought that was really cool. And of course, the power is to trap people in books. A very good power indeed. So that was a lot of fun. I loved the last episode because it was not only encompassing and giving us character development on Poe and Rampo and Yasano and their dynamic, but also because we've got Akutagawa and Atsushi together in an episode again, and I'm sorry, but I love them in episodes together. I really do, because Atsushi is our cinnamon roll were-tiger with his beautiful sense of justice, and Akutagawa is our angsty emo tailor coat-wearing man who just needs a hug. It's like their dynamic I live for, so I'm really excited to see. They're gonna have to work together if they're gonna stop Fitzgerald, so I'm curious to know how the heck that's gonna work, because they clearly hate each other, and Kyoka's there, and Fitzgerald's there. It's like all these mass murderers and orphans trapped in the same ship together as it's going down to become a literal bomb. What could happen? And they have less than an hour to disarm it. Okay. Okay. So I'm so curious what's going to happen. I have no clue how they're going to be doing this. Dazai is not there. He's kind of from the sidelines watching over everything and monitoring everything. And we don't know what the agency's doing. We don't know what the Port Mafia is doing. But Akutagawa likes to work alone. So other than Kyoka, there's probably nobody else there. So I'm super excited to see how this is all going to go down. I've not gone into an episode of a series being this excited just based on that preview and where the last episode left off at in quite a while. So with the exception of maybe Attack on Titan. But guys, I'm ready. Let's do this. It's episode 11, the penultimate episode. The Rashomon, the Tiger, and the Last Emperor. I'm curious to know what all this whole Last Emperor business is dealing with, because episode 8 just came out on YouTube, and several of you commented saying that it's about the book that Fitzgerald's looking for, and I'm like, what book is that? So I'm curious to know if we're going to get any more about that. But without further ado, We shall find out, won't we? So let's do this, y'all. Let us start. We are going to start episode 11 of season 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs here in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Oh my goodness, that episode was wonderful. Fitzgerald's power, I couldn't, okay, so I've had the hardest time trying to figure out what Fitzgerald's power was, and I was like, I've read The Great Gatsby and everything, and I was like, well, what has to do something with money, right, and wealth and all this, and so I was talking to my brother about it, and my brother just looked at me and he goes, his power's so obvious, and I'm like, well, what? He's like, I'm not spoiling you. He's like, you'll have to figure it out. But he's like, it's really obvious. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm one of those people that sometimes I can pick up things really quickly in a story, and some obvious things go right over my head. And the idea that the more he spins, the more powerful he gets is hilarious. Hilarious. Because it's so Fitzgerald. It's so perfect. And we finally get to see his motivation on it. So his whole motivation. I like that unlike, because his character is Fitzgerald, it's not Jay Gatsby. His power is the Great Gatsby, but his name is Fitzgerald. So his actual wife, Zelda, is real. It's not just the ship. Zelda is a real person that we know of, and she's mentally ill, which the real Zelda in real life, the real Zelda Fitzgerald was mentally ill as well, and had a lot of mental illness. And so, but in this case, it's because their daughter has apparently died, and he's trying to find this book, and apparently this book can resurrect the dead. Say what? What now? That seems a bit trifling. Or at least he thinks it will be able to bring his daughter back. I don't know. That's really creepy and interesting. I don't know if the real life Fitzgerald and Zelda lost a child. I don't know that. I'll have to look that up before the season finale. But this episode, just our angsty boys coming together and having to communicate and talk it out. And here's the thing. I've been wanting these two to talk about this since season 1 started. Like, since we got introduced to Akutagawa way back in episode 3 of season 1. I've been wanting these guys to talk it out because Akutagawa is jealous of Atsushi. He's jealous because he's like, you have a great gift. You have friends. You have friends. You have Dazai-san. You have all of the great things, and you have the disgusting urge to be self-loathing. He's like, you have everything. And Atsushi's like, I was nearly killed in an orphanage and just made friends like a month ago. I don't have everything. And he's like, why are you so mad at me? And it's just Akutagawa is so jealous of him. And you can tell Akutagawa sees a lot of himself in Atsushi. And he's like, well, why is it you? Why not me? It should have been me. And, that sort of thing. So there's so much going on in this episode. Oh my goodness. Let's go back. Dazai being like on the phone, being like, just tell Akutagawa it's me and I want to talk to him, and throw the phone away and he'll go get it. And then him hanging up. But by the end of this episode, I love that quiet moment where Atsushi's like, Dazai accepted you a long time ago. And Akutagawa just has that look on his face like, oh, you really think so? But I love that Akutagawa is not following anyone's agendas. Akutagawa just does whatever he wants. It's like, Mori has to feel like somewhat trepidatious because Akutagawa's a loose cannon, but I guess Mori's thinking, well, worst case scenario is he'll get rid of the were-tiger, but we'll figure it out. So I'm curious to know why Mori depends so much on Akutagawa. I guess he doesn't have a choice. But, oh, Fitzgerald. So I want to go back to that conversation he was having on the phone. Because he's got his coat off. I don't blame you. And yeah, talking to her on the phone. Yeah, so it's not Daisy, it's Zelda in this. And of course we don't see the child. She's still studying in London. And he has to lie to her. So, and him crying that tear. So we get Fitzgerald's motivations, which are very intriguing and very interesting. And so it makes sense. His ability makes sense why he's accumulated all this wealth, so he can use it as power. And that makes sense back on the boat. He spent money on the ammunition rounds and everything and used that to blow it up. Interesting. He's like, I love you, Zelda. So here's the thing. Our villain Fitzgerald is not totally heartless. Like, he has a woman that he loves, and he had a daughter that he's lost. And so he's clearly doing things. And he looks so much older in this episode. Like, Fitzgerald looks like he's aged so much over this conversation. And I love the idea of putting the phone there. And he's like, the most important part of any job is to not leave anything for others to handle. Which is very curious, which explains why he stayed on the ship. Because he's like, I want this plan to go smoothly, so I'm not leaving it into the hands of others. Because as we've seen throughout this season, him leaving things in the hands of others has not paid off for him very well. It's caused him to lose some battles. So I find that interesting. And then, of course, they're basically, the Moby Dick is just a bomb at this point that's going to blow up. And the second secret to how I got this far is don't let the value of others affect you. So he's like, I have my agenda and I'm going to follow it and I don't care what you think. So whatevers. And then, of course, he's super fast and gets to him before. And he's like, 3. Secret number 3 is easy to predict the behavior of anyone who's given an opportunity. So you're given a window. So that was all just a ploy to get him to come out. And I love his power. I haven't used $100,000 in a long time. Oh, the animation in this episode was so freaking good. And so, Kyoka, we get some insight into the entrance exam of the agency. And Daza explained to her, he's like, look, the special ops are coming to get you. You can pilot the drone down there. The agency has an entrance test which you haven't passed yet. The test is to see if you have the heart and strength to help even complete strangers. So, and then of course Kyoka's like, I don't think I'd pass. And in that moment, what I love about this is Dazai, he doesn't say it, but you know he relates to her completely. Because I haven't read Dazai's entrance exam yet. That's on my to-do list. But you can tell in that moment that Dazai's like, yeah, I had the exact same thoughts you did. Because when he asks her, he's like, how many people have you killed? And she says 35. And he's like, oh, a mere 35. Like, he doesn't say it, but he's killed, like, what, 100 and something, 137, 138 people? Like, 4 times as many as that. And he's like, oh, that's just paltry compared to what others have done. And he points out, you know, the agency isn't innocent either. People have killed on their hands, too. So it's not just you. You're not alone in this. But I like Dazai. Dazai is just, you can tell when he's like, I don't like that. A former killer isn't qualified to become a good person. And we instantly cut to Oda. Do you truly believe that? And oh, that kills me so much because it's so, because Dazai's like, Oda was a killer and a serial killer and was contracted to kill others, and yet in the end when he died, he was a good person because he tried to save people and he tried to turn around and change himself. So Dazai, he understands exactly what she's thinking, but he also understands how people can overcome that. And I love that Akutagawa just shows up and just kicks the snot out of Atsushi and just ignores Fitzgerald. He's like, whatever, I don't care about you. He's like, I'm here to fight the were-tiger. And he just calls him were-tiger. He doesn't call him Atsushi. He never calls him by his name. And Fitzgerald's like, I don't like being ignored. Excuse you. And he's like, oh, to me, you're completely incomprehensible. Those fearful eyes have no faith in your own strength or gift. So yeah, at first Akutagawa's like, I don't understand why you're like this. Why would you where do you get this incoherent self-respect? And Fitzgerald's like, that's enough, little guy. Like, hey, pay attention to me. And then Akutagawa's like, shut up. And he's like, And he tries to be cool. Again, Akutagawa tries to have these cool one-liners, but it's like, oh, it's you, Akutagawa. He's like, he's like, the were-tiger's the appetizer. He's like, I like my dessert to sit quietly. It's like, oh, Akutagawa, you're trying to be so cool, but it's not working. And Fitzgerald's like, hi. How about no? I got a credit card, bitch. I hate being in second place. Oh my God, please. I absolutely love it. Money and influence, gifts, social status. It helps to have all of them the way that I do. And then he talks about, he's done his research on Atsushi. He's like, I looked up your history. You were nearly killed twice in your early childhood. And that's awful, them like trying to drown him in the bowl. by the president of your orphanage when he kicked you and broke your ribs. He said to you, compared to what your parents did in your infancy, this doesn't even count as violence. And he's like a little baby there. Oh my God. And so Akutagawa, because Akutagawa grew up in the slums, they are the stray dogs, him and Atsushi, definitely. And so he grew up in the slums with nothing and probably suffered similar incidents. So I love that we get that moment where he kind of finally sees what Atsushi's gone through and can somewhat relate to him. I absolutely love that. It's so damn good. And then he's disgusted because, and I'm sorry, but that moment where he like lifts Atsushi up and like puts him next to his face, all I could think about was, now keys. Do I ship Atsushi and Akutagawa? At this point, if you don't know that about me, yes, I ship them 100%. I am totally on board the Atsushi and Akutagawa train. Choo choo. They have similar hairstyles. They have similar backstories. This is not a case of opposites attract. It's a case of these two characters are exactly the same and they need to hook up. So I love it, basically. I could kill you 100 times and gain no accomplishments in battle. So we cut back to Dazai talking with Kyoka. And this is the part that got me, y'all. This part here, because Fitzgerald just casually kicks himself in. I found you, stray dogs. Roll credits. But Dazai saying, Kyoka-chan, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. And him holding the matchbook from Bar Lupin, like his memoir of Oda and of Engo, but mostly Oda, I'm sure. That little memento that he keeps with him. The fact that after 4 years, he still kept it is so good. And he's like, you clearly have a talent for killing. And you think you can't become a member of the agency, but you have potential. And oh my gosh. The fact that everything from the Dark Age arc has followed Dazai through this entire season, and that moment, the fact that he kept the matchbook to remind himself of Oda and his promise to him and the memories of him and Engo, it's so good. It's so good, y'all. I absolutely love it. But in the elevator, these two facing opposite walls, like facing opposite corners, like pushed against the corner, not talking to each other. I love it. And then, of course, Atsushi getting, knocked against the wall, and Akutagawa being like, I called you disgusting because you have everything. And Atsushi's like, excuse me? He's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, Dazai is the one he's totally for. Yeah, I love that in this moment when they face Fitzgerald, he does the demonic armor and does his Sailor Moon transformation. I'm sorry, but I was like, oh my god, Akutagawa, this is like, with the ribbons and everything, it looked like a Sailor Moon transformation. I was all about it. And his face covering kind of looks like Gin. Kind of looks like Gin from the Port Mafia. I'm not gonna lie. Just looks very similar. And then Fitzgerald, of course, just kicking the snot, and then Atsushi using his Were-Tiger ability. I love it. And he gets more and more tiger-like, like the more he uses it. And of course they're red and blue motifs. Of course they are. Of course they're opposite colors. And of course they try to fight Fitzgerald, but then they end up fighting each other. It's like, can't you guys focus? And then Fitzgerald says the magic words. He says, you both are very much alike. And you ought not have said that, because these two boys were like, excuse me? Do not compare me to him. Our tsundere couple here. I'm all for it. I am all for it. And then, yeah, we established that the whole demonic armor thing is taxing on Akutagawa's body, so he doesn't like to use it very often. That's good to know. But I wanted to go back. He calls him Tiger Beetle, and some of you have established in the past that Tiger Beetles are used to find things. So he keeps calling him Tiger Beetle. So I'm guessing he thinks that he's going to use Atsushi to find this book. And he said, aside from family is everything, what aside from family is worth sacrificing everything for? So Fitzgerald has a very, very similar motivation to Atsushi. He's like, the agency's your family, and that's why you're trying to protect them, but I've got a family I'm trying to protect too. And that animation, the animation in these last couple episodes has been so wonderful. but that like yellow and green, it's so good on Fitzgerald. It's so good. I'll take the book and bring my daughter back into this world. So I'm curious to know what the book can do, if it brings people back to life or what happens. And yeah, we see like the one solitary tear go down his face. Yeah, so his daughter's death. So I'm so curious. Very interesting indeed. And reclaim my fantasy. Reclaim my family and make this fantasy a reality. So in The Great Gatsby, it's not really about the daughter necessarily, but it is about Jay Gatsby trying to make a fantasy into reality. And he uses money to try to buy everything to make that. So he uses money to try to get all the fancy things, all the riches, to get Daisy impressed and to get her to be on board with him and to leave her husband for him. And in the end, it's not enough. Like, the money can't buy everything. And so I'm really curious. What an odd ability, turning money into power. What a strange ability. Very born capitalist. I mean, that's just crazy. Very, very interesting. But it fits his character well. Money is dispensable. And I've accumulated a lot of it. And I love the little lines around him are all digits. They're all money being used. That's so cool. I'll pay all of it. And then he just goes Super Saiyan. And these two are like, okay, well, here we go. We're going to have to do this. And I just love how quietly they get up. And Atsushi kind of resigning himself. And then looking over him, telling him, I think Dazai-san already approved of you a long time ago. And then both looking so soft, like in the OP. So I'm like, I'm so curious how this is going to go. Like, what we going to do? You got less than 10 minutes to stop this. But I don't know how they're going to do it. Kyoka has to get involved somehow. And I love that at the end of this, we have all the primary colors. We have red, blue, and yellow. It's like all our primary colors. All there. And episode 24, aka episode 12 of this season, If I May Shed Away My Burden Now. So that's so exciting. Oh my gosh. This was a really, really good episode. I'm so curious what we're going to do for the season finale, because we've got to stop Moby Dick. Dazai is clearly doing something with Kyoka, so Kyoka's got to be involved with it. But I'm so curious about this book that can apparently bring people back from the dead. Say what? I'm curious because I feel like that'd be something if Dazai knew about it. Would he try to bring Oda back? Like, if that's something that you can do there? I don't know. I'm curious. But I definitely want Kyoka. I want this to be Kyoka's entrance exam. I want her to help Atsushi and Akutagawa. But they're not strangers. That's the thing. Do you have the heart and strength to help complete strangers? They're not strangers. She knows them. So that's the problem. So she'd probably have to do the entrance exam when she got back down there. But I want her to help save them. I feel like Kyoka has a really cool ability and could be a really compelling character. She's just like Atsushi right now. She's really self-loathing and she needs to like get it together. So I don't know, but I'm really hoping that she can kind of pull it together for that. But oh my gosh, y'all. This was a great episode. I had so much fun with this. This was a fun, good shonen. This was just a nice, like, classic shonen where you got the action, you got the angst, you've got the villain with the freaking cool power. There's like the big stakes, the Dragon Ball Z. It's like Namek on Dragon Ball Z. This planet's gonna blow in 5 minutes, and we're gonna have 2 episodes for 5 minutes. And in this, it's like the whale's gonna crash in 10 minutes in the city, and this entire episode is taking those 10 minutes. So, but I loved it. This season has been so fun, and episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 now have been so wonderful and exciting, and I can't wait to get into episode 12 next week. And then after episode 12, we are going to watch Dead Apple, the movie. So the movie is going to come after, in between seasons 2 and 3. Well, let me rephrase that. We have the OVA. So next week, we have episode 12. Then we're going to do the OVA, and then Dead Apple, and then season 3 after that. So lots of fun stuff to come. But I'm excited, y'all. I hope y'all are too. If you want to comment down below, please do so. Thank you so much for watching this reaction. Please no spoilers, but please feel free to comment down below. And yeah, next week, the season finale of Bungo Stray Dogs Season 2. We're already here. Crazy, right? So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next week with more Bungo Stray Dogs. Bye.